After inheriting a considerable sum, Natalia decided to test her husband's loyalty. She informed him that her parents had lost their home and would be moving in with them the following day. However, the next morning, she was astonished by what she witnessed. Before we continue, please tell me what country you are from and your age. Enjoy the story. Natalia awoke in the dead of night, lying awake and listening to the profound silence. The room was filled with the scent of freshly laundered linen, chamomile from a nearby pharmacy, and the faint aroma of cool tea from the previous evening. Outside, sparse car headlights trailed along the street. The distant rumble of an early bus echoed faintly. On her bedside table lay a letter from the notary, folded neatly in half. Natalia knew its contents by heart. A house on the outskirts of Moscow and a bank account had been bequeathed to her by her distant cousin Nadezhda, who had relocated far away years ago but had unexpectedly remembered her niece. Joy did not accompany the news. Instead, a sense of unease settled in. While money and property could alter much, they couldn't alter everything. The most crucial element remained unchanged by this document. In the kitchen, 2 unwashed wine glasses, remnants of an evening's indulgence, still sat on the counter. In the hallway, Igor's sneakers lay strewn across the doormat, precisely in his usual spot. Igor slept in the adjoining room, occasionally murmuring in his sleep, "We'll sort it out later." 10 years had passed since then. Natalia rose, donned her robe, and went to heat the kettle. She watched a thin wisp of steam ascend from the spout, pondering how steam resembled hope. It dissipated quickly unless contained. She poured herself black tea, retrieved some bread, switched on a table lamp, and unfolded the letter again. The paper rustled softly. The house and the deposit. She read aloud, as if in disbelief, that they were unencumbered. Her gaze then shifted to her phone. On the screen was a photograph of her aunt in her youth. A slightly defiant smile, kind eyes. "Thank you, Aunt Nadia," Natalia whispered. "I'll try not to squander it all on trivialities." Igor appeared in the kitchen around 9, unshaven, wearing the same t-shirt as the day before. He poured himself coffee, took a loud sip, and winced. "Your tea again," he grumbled. He sat down, stretched, and yawned. "So, how's that inheritance of yours?" he inquired casually. "Tomorrow I'm going to see the house," Natalia replied calmly. "And to the notary for the paperwork. We need to decide what comes next. Decide." Igor raised an eyebrow. "Sell it and invest it wisely. I'll handle it. I have ideas. The main thing is not to rush." The word invest was always spoken by Igor with a peculiar drawl, as if tasting something sweet. Natalia knew those ideas all too well. They invariably involved lending money to an acquaintance, profiting from market fluctuations, conceiving a service, or acquiring a stake, and ceasing all work. They had navigated this path before, each time requiring her doctor's salary to cover the deficits. She refrained from arguing, waited until evening, and then visited Lyuba, an old friend as forthright as a straight line on graph paper, and yet so kind that any thorny conversation near her transformed into soft wool. "Don't tell him yet," Lyuba advised after listening. "Money. It's a litmus test, as you know. It sounds harsh, but it's the only way to see who's truly by your side. And don't blame yourself for this test. You're not harming anyone. You simply want to know the truth before you commit." "I don't want to catch him out," Natalia sighed. "I'm just afraid of making another mistake for the next 10 years. "Then don't," Lyuba nodded. "Do what's sensible." Natalia walked home, her mind already formulating her response. She barely slept until morning, not with words, but with meaning. Respect is not measured by how gifts are received, but by how hardship is welcomed into one's home. At dinner, she stated, calmly, no scenes. "My parents have experienced a misfortune. Their house burned down. Tomorrow they will come to our apartment to stay for a while. We'll help them with their documents and belongings, and they'll live with us as best they can." Igor was silent for a long time, put down his fork, and leaned back in his chair. "Our apartment?" he repeated. "And how long is for a while?" "A month, a year, until you decide it's convenient," Natalia replied. "They have nowhere else to go for now. These are my parents. I won't abandon them on the street." And I didn't sign up for communal living, Igor stated. They are elderly and require care. I can't handle that. Figure something else out. What else? Natalia asked. Rent them a place? With what money? And why? If we have 2 rooms? You're a doctor. You have a salary, he responded irritably. You'll think of something. I'll look for options. But I have my own project right now. I can't be distracted. My peace is important to me. People are important, Natalia said. People are good, Igor interjected curtly. But I'm not prepared. I'm sorry. He rose from the table, went to his room, and slammed the door. Everything that followed happened swiftly. The rustle of a wardrobe, the zip of a bag, the dull thud of a suitcase on the floor. In the morning, Natalia found his belongings by the door. Igor stood in his jacket, holding his passport. I'll stay with Sasha for a bit, he said. Until you figure things out. I don't want any arguments. Call me when it's all resolved. Don't call, Natalia wanted to say, but spoke differently. All right. He left. The hallway fell silent. Natalia closed the door and leaned against it, breathing evenly. Inside, there was no emptiness, only clarity, as after a thunderstorm. The air was thick but clean. Her phone chirped. Sorry, I was heated. Let's not be extreme. I'll return when things settle down, Igor texted. She silenced her phone and placed it on the table. The next day, Natalia drove to the village. The house stood at the edge, made of sturdy wood, with a high porch and an old cherry orchard behind the shed. The roof was intact, the windows adorned with carved platbands. The entryway smelled of dried herbs and wood. She opened the shutters, and the room filled with a simple, rustic light, as if tranquility had always resided within it. In the kitchen, she found an enamel kettle, a tin of tea on a shelf, and neatly folded towels in the sideboard. In the evening, neighbors arrived. I'm Glasha, introduced a short, wiry woman, and this is my grandson, Pashka. He's handy. He can fetch anything for you. Pavel nodded, smiled, and immediately felt like one of them, quiet, but with a warm gaze. It was easy to be around him. I'm Natalia, she said. A doctor. I'll be staying here. I just need to relocate. They sat on the porch. Glasha spoke of the market, the bus to the city, and the part-time paramedic at the local clinic whose equipment sometimes malfunctioned. Pavel adjusted the gate, offered to help clear the well, and as he left said, If you're afraid the first night, just call me. I'm close by. She wasn't afraid. The night in the house was warm. Behind the wall, the stove crackled and the floorboards creaked. The air smelled of apples and dried herbs. Natalia listened to these sounds for a long time and suddenly realized that for the first time in ages, no one was disturbing her thoughts or her breath. The move took 3 days. Lyuba found movers, her mother brought jam, and her father helped pack books into boxes. Igor made no appearance, merely sending a curt message. Okay. Natalia decided not to explain anything. Things had unfolded as they had. Life in the village settled into a steady rhythm. Mornings began with tea and buttered bread. Days were spent working in the garden, undertaking minor repairs, and traveling to the city by bus for paperwork. Evenings involved reading, calls to her parents, and brief chats with neighbors. On the 3rd day, Glasha brought milk and sour cream. For your health. On the 5th, Pavel arrived with a soldering iron, fixed the table lamp, checked the wiring, and stayed for 10 minutes, then half an hour, then an hour. It was easy to be with him. Why do you always say you? Natalia asked one day. I'm not your boss. It's a habit, Pavel smiled. But I'll correct it. You, Natasha. I'm Pasha. Everything's fair and square, she nodded. News of a doctor arriving in the village spread quickly. Elderly residents came to have their blood pressure checked, young mothers sought advice on children's fevers, and some simply came to talk. Some brought eggs, others honey, some a bag of potatoes. Natalia accepted everything, not out of greed, but out of respect for people sharing what they could. She acquired a thick notebook and meticulously recorded who she spoke to and their ailments. Maria K. blood pressure 150/90. Recheck in 2 days. Grigory T. dry cough. Tea, milk, Gargle, no antibiotics. Pavel sometimes stood in the doorway and listened. That you don't just treat people, you comfort them. That's half the cure, she replied. One evening, she found a basket in the entryway. Inside lay a warm, fluffy puppy, a funny, red-eared creature. Pashka brought him, Glasha admitted. He said you needed a guardian spirit to keep you company. His name is Rizik, Pavel declared. And there's no arguing. Thank you, Natalia said, feeling a lightness and brightness fill her soul. Igor resurfaced after a month. He called one morning as she was preparing to leave for the bus. Natasha, hello. I've been thinking we should talk. I'm nearby in the city. I can come over. Come over, she replied. He arrived around lunchtime, emerging from his car in a suit, carrying a bouquet of roses. He immediately disliked the house. She saw his gaze sweep over the carved platbands, at the peeling paint on the gate, the bucket by the well. So, he said, is this a village game? You're a city person. How long will this last? Sit down. Natalia indicated a bench. Tea. Do you have coffee? Tea. Fine. He sat reluctantly. Look, I understand you have emotions, but this is all quite unserious. We need to return to the city, sell this house, buy something decent, invest the money. I know people. It'll all work out. Igor, Natalia placed the kettle on. Why did you leave then? I didn't leave, he bristled. I moved out temporarily. I didn't want to live with your parents. Didn't I have a choice? There's always a choice, she replied. You just didn't choose me. Enough with the drama. It seems the house has really drawn you into the woods. Igor attempted a smile. Okay, I'm not good at eloquent speeches. Let's do this. A fresh start. You come back. We sell. I'll handle the investments. No, Natalia said. Why? Because everything you're proposing now is about money, and I wanted to talk about how we would live if things got difficult. I tested you, Igor. I told you my parents had lost everything, and you packed your bags. That's the answer. He leaned back, snorting. So it was a test. Excellent. And what are you proud of? I saved myself for the truth, Natalia stated. You destroyed a marriage for a game. At that moment, Pavel entered the yard, carrying a box of planks. Oh, guests, he said. I'll come back later. Do come in, Natalia replied softly. This is Igor, and this is Pavel. The men exchanged curt nods. Igor offered a condescending smile. Well then, he said, standing up. If you think I'll wait while you play your village game, you're mistaken. Good luck. And to you, Natalia said. He placed the bouquet on the edge of the bench, turned, and left. The car sped away, kicking up dust on the road. Natalia watched him go, feeling neither anger nor pity, only finality, like a closed door behind which lay a different life. Pavel set down the planks, took a small knife from his pocket, and began to repair a cracked handle. Difficult? He asked. No, Natalia replied. Yesterday was difficult. Today? Clear. Then tea, Pavel nodded. I just brought some apples. They drank tea on the porch, and the apples smelled of childhood. Gradually, the house filled with life. Rizik grew into a serious dog, but his eyes still held a puppy's joy. Neighbors visited more often, sometimes for a bandage, sometimes with good news. Blood pressure returned to normal. Pavel replaced part of the fence, laid new floorboards in the kitchen, and installed hooks on the door. Glasha brought pie just because, often repeating, if the stove isn't smoking in the house, the owner's heart is warm. Her parents called occasionally. Daughter, her mother would say, your voice sounds so bright. Is everything all right? It's good, Natalia would reply. Truly good. One day, Sasha, the friend Igor had stayed with, called. It's not my place, he said. But Igor, his business isn't doing well. He's still hoping you'll come back. He says, it's empty without you. Maybe you could talk. Enough time has passed, Natalia said. He made his choice. And so have I. A sigh came from the other end. I understand. Take care. In autumn, Natalia began offering consultation hours for the village on Sundays. She didn't treat for free but charged a nominal fee so people wouldn't feel obligated, recognizing that it was not just the prescription but human connection that helped. She had a knack for listening in such a way that people's shoulders relaxed. Pavel would joke, "You're like a stove. People come to you to get warm. A stove needs fuel," Natalia would respond, "and it needs to be watched so it doesn't burn out. That's what I'm here for," he would say, and there was no boasting in his words. In winter, as the first snow fell, Natalia stood by the window, watching the white blanket settle on the branches, the porch, and Rizik's tracks. Pavel arrived, shook the snow from his hat, and placed a paper bag on the table. "Mandarins," he smiled. It's nearly New Year's." "Sweet, as they should be." He nodded. They peeled mandarins in comfortable silence. It was simply good. In January, Natalia went to the city on business and encountered Igor outside a shop. He had lost weight noticeably. His skin had a paler hue. "Natasha," he said softly. "I'm not begging. I just wanted to say I'm sorry." "For what?" she asked. "Just for everything. I was a fool. I was afraid your parents would come. What would start? I don't know. I'm used to things being quiet at home, and you tested it." He spread his hands. "Anyway, I understand. You were right. I don't need victory," Natalia said. "I wanted honesty." "Are you happy?" he asked. "Yes," she replied. "That doesn't mean without pain, but yes." He then lowered his gaze. "And then thank you for letting me go." "And thank you for going your own way," Natalia said. They parted without animosity. Doors didn't slam shut. They simply remained closed. In the spring, the house began to resonate with new life. The cherry trees bloomed. Chickens moved into the shed. At night, the scent of damp earth wafted from the forest. Natalia established a small vegetable garden, planting dill, onions, and 2 rows of strawberries. Pavel lingered on the porch more often, talking about his work at the lumber mill, how difficult orders were currently, but how pleasant it was to come home in the evening. On a warm May day, he played soft music from his phone and asked, "Shall we dance?" "Right here?" Natalia was surprised. "Right here." He extended his hand. They danced on the wooden porch, accompanied by birdsong and the rustling wind. The dance was short, a little clumsy, but genuine. "Thank you," she said. "And you," he replied. In the summer, Natalia began traveling to the city more frequently, working at the local clinic under contract. She was invited twice a week. The rest of the time, she saw patients at home. There was enough money, the house was well maintained, and her relationships with people remained warm. Lyuba visited occasionally, bringing news from the wider world, a magazine, and laughter before leaving. "I look at you," she would say, "and I realize money is good. But it's better when a person is in their right place. You are." "Perhaps," Natalia smiled. In autumn, she and Pavel gathered apples, dried them on baking sheets, and made compote. Glasha shared an old apple pie recipe, and for the first time in a long time, the house smelled of baking. The kitchen was warm. Natalia stood by the stove, thinking that happiness doesn't need an audience. It suffices with 2 cups, a clean table, and a person opposite who doesn't look away when things are difficult. One evening, an SMS arrived from Igor. "Live well." Just 2 words. No punctuation. Natalia replied, "And you?" And that was all. Sometimes, the past concludes with dignity, a brief courtesy. As winter approached, Pavel suggested a trip to the lake. They walked along the path. Snow crunched underfoot. The air was crisp, like mint. The ice hadn't fully formed. The water was gray, and birds perched on the bushes. Pavel stopped. "Natasha," he said, "I feel calm when I'm with you. I'm not eloquent, but I know how to be. If you feel the same way, let's be together." She nodded. "Let's." "And no rushing," he added. "And no testing." Natalia smiled. "Just tea and work," he winked. "And quiet," she said. They stood side by side, listening to the water and the sky. In that moment, the future ceased to be frightening. It turned out the future had a simple voice. measured and warm. The year concluded with white snow and the yellow glow of a lamp in the window. For New Year's they gathered, the three of them, Natalia, Pavel, and Glasha. Rijik slept under the table. Mandarins lay in a vase. At midnight, they went out to the gate and lit sparklers. Glasha said, "I wish you always have us." Pavel added, "and that no one tests us." Natalia laughed. Then they returned to the house, drank tea, and listened to a radio concert. The clock on the wall ticked off minute after minute. Outside, the snow fell silently. Natalia recalled the first morning with the notary's letter. Igor at the door with his suitcase, the road to a new home, Lyuba's laughter, Pavel's cautious gaze, the warm hands of her neighbors, the gentle patter of rain on the roof. And she thought, back then I wasn't testing him. I was testing myself. Was I ready to live the way I believed was right? Yes. She opened her notebook and wrote 3 lines. Love is seen in hardship, not in wealth. A quiet no can sometimes save more than a shout. Home is a person with whom you can be silent. She added the date, closed the notebook, and smiled. About what? Pavel asked. That everything is right, she replied. Then tea. He nodded. The tea brewed strong, like their new life, without excessive sugar, but with a warm aftertaste.